Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Into the Pit. And I have here Mr. Brett Eichenberger and Toby Johnson. They have a documentary film out. It's called A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. And the reason I know about it is because a buddy of mine is actually in the documentary. His name is Todd Neese. And these guys are going to tell us a little bit about themselves. And we're also going to talk about the show or the film, excuse me. And I guess, Brett, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been a filmmaker for 25 years or so. I've done everything from narrative feature films, Light of Mine, Pretty Broken are two of the films that I've done that are available on Amazon and different places. And I've been interested in Bigfoot going back to when I was a kid. And when I met my wife over 20 years ago, Jill Remensnyder, who's also the producer and writer on A Flash of Beauty, it was one of the first things that we had in common. We realized that we were both interested in the paranormal and, mysteries of the unknown, if you will. And so, long story short, when the pandemic hit and we ran out of work, we thought, all right, here we go. This is now is the time for us to finally do that paranormal project we've been talking about. And from that, we came up with A Flash of Beauty, and we thought we'd shoot over the summer in 2020. And we ended up shooting a lot longer because the rabbit hole is very deep. And in fact, we shot so much, we decided to split it into two chapters. So this is the first film in a series, and I'm sure there's more coming down the road. But that's pretty much it. It's been out since May 31st. It's available on Amazon and Google Play and Vudu and iTunes and everywhere fine streaming videos are served.
All right, Toby, your turn.
Well, Brett and I met only about a couple years ago at the beginning of 2020. And previous to that time, before we met, I'm not a filmmaker. Don't have a real background in filmmaking at all, but I am a researcher of all things strange. And the baseline of that, the foundation of the research was Bigfoot related here in the Cascade Wilderness. Now I live in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, but previous to that, I lived in a little community called Lane County, Oregon, outside of Eugene, Springfield, Oregon. And I found a footprint with my son. We shopped this photograph around of this said footprint. I ended up meeting witnesses to the phenomena back in the mid 2000s. And incredibly enough, the sightings were not rare. It was not hard to come by people that claimed that real, that the phenomena is real. It just wasn't hard for me to find witnesses to talk to. So I started to throw together monthly meetings, kind of like AA meetings for Bigfoot witnesses. And we would go to this little greasy spoon near a little town called Leesburg, Oregon, and meet once a month on a Wednesday around 7. And that turned into doing conferences and meeting more and more witnesses. So I had to pick what kind of witnesses I was going to focus in on. Was I going to focus in on these people that were telling me, hey, this is a giant mountain monkey, it's a relic hominid, it fits in between the gaps of humanity? Or is it something altogether different? Is it what the Native Americans are saying, that this is a giant forest brother, that this is an age-old mystery of spiritualism and supernatural connections? And the mainstay of those people that were telling me that were what I would call, Sasquatch contactees or extended experiencers of Sasquatch. And they quite literally were claiming they had Bigfoot in their own backyard, that they were having constant interactions with Bigfoot, or they could go to a location where Sasquatch activity was pretty regular. You could depend upon it. Included in that was the amazing research of Ron Moorhead, really one of the first Bigfooters I ever spoke to and had a one-on-one friendship was Ron Moorhead of the Sierra Sounds and Quantum Bigfoot. And, I was kind of like a young Padawan, and he was the Jedi Master pulling me under his wing, teaching me his Jedi ways and the quantum ways. And Ron was not wrong about where he was leaning for his research. Now, what a lot of people don't know is a guy like Ron in the beginning didn't want to talk about the weird stuff, because the fact is he was saying Bigfoot has a language, and that there were all these previous studies, including the studies with Scott Nelson, a cryptolinguist, the studies with, I believe Dr. Curlin was another doctor. And that was his claim through the Sierra Sounds, is that him and a group of hunters studied Bigfoot, and yes, they have language. However, he would tell me privately that the stories are much more strange. His family that would go up to the Sierras would say this, the phenomena is much more strange. And again, here's another individual who claimed to go to a power spot and have interaction in this area that could not be debunked by anybody that went there.
Mm.
And so that's where the primary focus of getting into Bigfoot really started, was leaning into going to people's properties or their power spots. And that's when Brett and Jill found me through Ron Moorhead, oddly enough, who basically actually, without Ron, the spot that I was researching in Cottage Grove, Oregon, really would have never came to be. And that's when Brett and Jill, I believe again at Beachfoot, where the original meeting between Ron and the property owners who set me up, and basically said, you know, we're a retired couple. We need somebody to come out to our property and tell us we're not crazy, that we do have Bigfoot. And enter me, and you know, about, I think we're almost 3 years into it, and the phenomena is certainly very strange. And now there's a beautiful documentary that is all about this and much, much more. And it's a fantastic film to be involved with. It's one of the most beautiful documentaries I've ever seen, and the love of cinema is present in every frame with Flash of Beauty.
Well, I've been a paranormal investigator for a little over 7 years, mostly ghosts, but I'm interested in things like UFOs and aliens and cryptids, that kind of thing. I've had different people on my show that have talked about, you know, they see like UFOs or ghosts wherever there's a Bigfoot. Everybody has their theory on it. What's Toby? What's your theory about what Bigfoot is? Is it interdimensional? Is it, you know, a caveman that's just survived all this time? What is it?
You know, I vacillate once a year on what it is. That's what's so cool about it, is you cannot nail down this phenomena. Whatever is happening is Bigfoot comes through an open doorway that is, for the most part, I think, fairly open all the time. And these other things seem to come and go through these open doorways. I think John Keel used to call them window areas in the Mothman prophecies. And so these windows, I think, are open most of the time. So Bigfoot, like I said, was just the beginning. It was the fundamentals of understanding the supernatural. I could have been, you know, following up on UFOs at an early age. And, you know, I had witnesses in the family that said as much, that they saw them. However, this connective tissue, the branching out of the Bigfoot phenomena, is so coalesced with the supernatural that, you know, it's very uncomfortable for people to talk about it because of the ridicule factor. And then you add in the complexity of saying, oh yeah, but then it had all these other supernatural things happening as well, or it did this supernatural act. So, you know, for the documentary's sake, that's why they had to break it up. We had to break it up into 2 chapters. And the first chapter is primarily on the flesh and blood, because you have to allow both of those groups. I mean, Brett, you've been to conferences, you see how we are. There's these 2 groups that are bifurcated into the flesh and blood and the other. And so the film has that mutual respect and says, okay, yes, there is this phenomenon of the flesh and blood, but this other category is weighty with data, forensic data, that is just waiting for the right hands to get into it. So I don't know if you have more to add to that, Brett. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do actually. I think the data is overwhelming. We actually interviewed a man in San Antonio, as a matter of fact, Farouk, and Farouk talks about how the data is being skewed by the flesh and blood, and that's not telling the truth. And the truth is that, just like what you just said, Kyle, you know, so many of these people are seeing so many different things alongside a Bigfoot sighting. You know, I think the folks that have the quick, you know, Bigfoot crossing the road sightings may not experience some of these more paranormal things, but for the most part, I'd 60, 70, 80, 90% of folks that have these experience are having these paranormal, situations, whether it's an orb or it's a feeling, mind speak, any number of different phenomena are happening during these sightings. And some folks don't even make the connection, for a few years. They come back and they revisit their setting and whatever, they start thinking, oh yeah, it was, there was some other stuff going on. But anyways, the point is that, for me, it's all, that's all part of this Bigfoot case. And, hopefully by the time the second film comes out, we're going to start bringing this conversation into one group of people, because that's what it really is. And I understand the flesh and blood perspective. I completely understand it, because frankly, the things that are happening right now with the paranormal Bigfoot stuff is just off the wall crazy.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, it's off the wall crazy because we don't understand the science behind it. And Ron Moorhead talks about the science. He talks about the quantum physics that he thinks are behind it. And we interviewed a scientist for the sequel who talks about some of the other things that might be at play. So we're, and we're seeing some of the science could explain many different things in the realm of the paranormal. So I'm really excited about, some of this kind of cutting edge science that's being applied to this. And, does it get rid of some of the mystery? Maybe, but that mystery is not going away anytime soon.
Right. Well, the one thing that seems to be coming up is that people are seeing orbs wherever they're having these Bigfoot experiences. But the paranormal, like ghost part of it, it's like the activity's amped up in those areas. People claim that they see UFOs. A buddy of mine this is his niche. I mean, that's what he does, is strictly Bigfoot and cryptids. His equipment will go crazy sometimes. Just like when we're doing a paranormal investigation, sometimes our equipment goes haywire and there's no explanation for it. I will change batteries. I'll use it the next time and it doesn't do that. I can't explain it. I don't know. Is this something interdimensional? Some people think that Bigfoot is an alien that these aliens use to scout. And some people think that this is some creature that we just haven't discovered out in the woods, blah, 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 all kinds of theories. And something else that I don't want to focus on, but it seems to be a lot of infighting in the Bigfoot field because there's different theories about it. We get that same drama in the ghost. I know there's drama in the UFO world too. Have y'all encountered that?
Yeah. And Tobe's been a part of this community longer than we have, so he might be the better person to speak of it. But I can certainly say that we've seen it. We've definitely seen it, and it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to focus on the negative, but you get people they swear up and down, this is the way it is. It's my way or the highway. I think it's ridiculous. I think maybe we should combine the evidence and come up with a solution. There might be something that nobody thought of. What do you think, Toby?
So much of this is about access to people and access to resources. And if you have a narrative that fits with where you have access of resources and access of personalities or celebrity or network possibilities, you threaten to lose little pieces of the puzzle that you worked so hard to get to. And so I could see why people don't do it. And I never really thought about that way when I was getting into this, as far as how daunting that would be for the male ego. But it's mainly a male ego driven phenomena. I just saw the other day somebody, I believe in Idaho or Montana, dressed like a bounty hunter is off to kill one again.
Yeah.
And it's so humorous, first of all, when you know what these things can do, to see somebody dressed up like a backup singer for Jurassic Park or something. It's Jurassic Park the musical, but it's you just, it's such a distraction from how beautiful this phenomena is. I mean, some of the best memories I have to do with interacting with this phenomena with friends, having a good time, laughing around a campfire and having this phenomena encroach. And to think that that could be whittled away by, the douchebags in this field, I just have nothing to do with it. And so for the most part, I just do my own thing and take a back seat as much as possible with the right people. And that's been, because they're constantly trying to drag you into their little network wars that they have on social media. Maybe not as much as they used to. And then eventually these people just kind of commit their own, social media suicide by, they just expend so much energy on trying to be ridiculous, sensational, that they eventually just go away. So, but anyway, yeah, Bigfoot isn't like that at all. Bigfoot is not interested in what humanity is interested in. Certainly not interested in ego. These are much different creatures in so many ways, but and so much like us in ways that I always say that this mystery started in the forest but ended someplace altogether totally different. And that's really the truth. This is not a mystery of the trees and woods and shadows. This is a mystery that follows you home. And what the hell is that about?
Well, I've read that article about the guy that's wanting to go out and kill the Bigfoot. My thing is number one, you're just reinforcing why I think Bigfoot doesn't want to be around man in the first place. It's like, I'll get close, but I'm not going to get too close. And number two, what if this ends up being another species of man? You're committing murder. Why would you want to kill an innocent creature? That makes no sense to me.
I don't know, Brett, do you know anybody who's invested in this phenomena that thinks of it through a quantum lens, let's say, and thinks that they're going to go kill one? Because I think it's usually just a flesh and blood phenomena, right? That think that way.
Yeah. I don't really know how to categorize it or what to make of it. Jill and I were talking about this the other day about the same guy, and we just kind of laughed about it because this guy's not going to kill a Bigfoot, not because they're not there, but because Bigfoot is, Bigfoot's the apex predator. If anybody gets killed in this hunt, it's the dude with the gun, and the sooner that this flesh and blood hunter realizes that, the sooner he should realize he should hang up his gun and stay safely at home, because, these things know that you're in the woods with the gun, whether you see them or hear them or not. We have a story coming up in the sequel about that. We have a story about a former law enforcement official who's in the woods, and he never had mind speak his entire life. The next thing he knows, clear as day, in his head, he hears, "Why are you carrying a gun?"
Wow.
So these things know what guns are. They know how to throw rocks. Are they out to get people, unprovoked? I don't think so, unless you're encroaching on their territory or threatening their family.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is ridiculous. And I do think, like you're saying, Tobe, I think that these people are strictly flesh and bloods. It's no different than the pitchforks, in my opinion.
Right.
It's the failure to understand. It's fear-based. I think most of this stuff is fear-based. I think folks unwilling to take a look at paranormal, I think that's fear-based. And a lot of that comes from a life of religion. And I'm not saying religion is a bad thing whatsoever, but I'm thinking, I think there's a lot of people out there that just assume that these things are demonic or something like that and evil. And I don't think that that's the case. I really don't.
I don't believe that at all. I think of it just another tribe. They want to exist. Why should we even attempt to go out and try to kill one? I think we could learn from them. I think that's apparent. But you've got these people that are looking for fame and fortune. Oh, I shot a Bigfoot. Like you said, they're probably too smart for that anyway. But if he was lucky enough to do it, I just think that's wrong, man. That's wrong. But so in your documentary, you you've got Todd and a few other people. Is this more of convincing people, or just this is just I'm presenting my evidence and these are the people that I brought on board? Well, what was the main purpose of the film?
There's many purposes of this film. I think ultimately our goal is to educate folks, and start changing the conversation, because there's this idea that's kind of being perpetrated by some of these TV shows that Bigfoot is a monster. When you name a show Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, that doesn't help our cause.
No.
And granted, there I'm not saying that Bigfoot aren't capable of doing bad things. They certainly are, and they certainly have. But you can't generalize this population. I mean, there's clans of them that are just as different as others. There's different cultures. They're just like us. They're just like humans, and there's strong indications that there's different species, so on and so forth. So we want to get that word out that these things are like human. They could be cousins to us. It could be relatives to us. On the flip side, we as humans may have some subdued gifts that they have. We may have forgotten how to use them. They might be gifts that we utilized tens of thousands of years ago. It's like the appendix. It's like we don't use it anymore, but it's still there. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yep.
okay. I fully believe when you're talking about the supercomputer that's encased inside of our skull, it's the most powerful computer in the history of the world, and we all have one. What else is it capable of doing? You know what I mean? So I think that this rabbit hole goes long and it goes deep. Now I'm going off on a tangent, but the whole point is that I think there's so much to discover here.
Yeah. Well, I've been a paranormal investigator, I said, for like 7 years, but I've believed in ghosts since I was a little kid. I am one of the most skeptical people in the world, though, especially when it comes to my own evidence. And I love to just put what I really can't explain up and say, if somebody else has an idea, what do you think it is? But the things that I've seen and the evidence that I've gotten, I have no doubt that there are ghosts out there. And now our government has finally come out and said, yes, UFOs are real. What's the chance that they actually know that the Bigfoot is real, and why shouldn't it be? I'll let Toby answer that one.
Yeah.
Well, we approach that in the documentary through shadowing out the person due to the sensitive nature of their work, and so that is definitely something that's approached in the documentary, along with Todd's story as well. I mean, Todd was in the military. I'm not quite sure what the debriefing was. I should ask him sometime as far as what happened after that, because there probably was some kind of debriefing, I'm thinking. I don't know if he was told to stand down and keep his mouth shut. I just haven't got any really firm knowledge about what the military knows regarding Sasquatch, and it's because of the giggle factor. Like one of the guys in the film is Rich Germeau, who's an ex police officer. Great guy, just super intense, very smart. He saw what he saw, a very close encounter outside of La Push while he was on duty. And he stands by his sighting story. But he makes the good point, just like, I'm of no threat to anybody because I've discredited myself telling everyone that I'm a Bigfoot witness. That has totally discredited anything I would ever do in the court of law as a police officer or anything else, because of the fact that they can always go back. And I think that's why this phenomena is safe, is because that giggle factor is like the self-destruct button. They do such a good job This is such a silly, ridiculous topic to most people. I mean, yeah, we're kind of intense about it, and we're all believers and drinking the same Kool-Aid here. And by the way, Brett, it's so cool to hear you as a researcher now talking like a Bigfooter, knowing what's happened over the last couple of years. It's so cool. But, you know, it wasn't always like that for Brett. I'm sure, you know, there's a bit of not knowing the facts of this story and how emotionally involved this documentary is. An emotional roller coaster of talking to witnesses, first point of view, about their experiences and the consequences about coming forward and talking about what you've seen, because it is the most ridiculous thing to tell the neighbor next door that you have seen a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I imagine there's got to be a lot of ridicule that comes along with it. We're kind of reluctant of the people that we tell, oh, I mean, you should see this evidence we caught of ghost, even though it's pretty compelling. How much, Brett, how much ridicule have you faced doing this?
You know, we've been fortunate. I'm sure there's some snickering behind the back, you know, quite a bit. My in-laws, for instance, when they first found out that we were doing this, were just disappointed, and they told their daughters as much. And I said to them, I said, look, my in-laws live in a small town on the Oregon coast, surrounded by the logging industry and forests. And I said, it's only going to be a matter of time before you talk to somebody that's had a sighting. And it took about 6 months, and they finally did. And it happened to be the county judge.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So I was like, yep, there's a win. I said, you're living in a community where many, many people have had this experience because of the terrain in the area that you're living. You know, they're just not talking about it. And eventually, if you tell people about our documentary, so-and-so is going to say, oh, well, Ed or Steve or Kevin or whoever was out hunting and they saw something they can't explain. And that's what happened. And so it hasn't been too bad. I've had a couple of friends saying, well, you're a serious filmmaker. Are you sure you want to tackle this subject? And I said, I can bring a seriousness to this topic that's not there. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And I feel like we've made some headway there.
Yeah.
Because, at the end of the day, there are a lot of people out there that have had these sightings that are too afraid to talk about them. And, call it circumstance or call it orchestration, but we have an interview at the very end of the film where, this man named Daryl gets up in front of the camera and he tells an amazing, amazing story about his sighting up in Alaska. And spoiler alert, he says, I did this to bless the folks out there that have a story that they want to tell. He's vouching for him. Get out there and talk about it. Let's kind of demystify this. And thankfully we're seeing that happen in the UFO community. There's not as many tinfoil hat stuff, reports. The Air Force is now encouraging pilots to report UFO sightings. So this is trickling down, and I think it's going to keep trickling down.
You think this is going to convince people?
I've spoken to many, many people that this documentary has convinced. And, we've always felt, from the beginning, some of the best evidence, in our opinions, is good quality eyewitness reports, eyewitness accounts. I mean, you can interview the town drunk, and everybody's going to kind of pick up on the fact that he's the town drunk. And you're going to kind of like, maybe he saw that. Maybe he didn't. He was probably drunk. That's not the case with these individuals. These are good quality individuals with compelling stories, and they're speaking right to camera. And when you're looking into these folks' eyes, that they've seen something they can't explain. You can see the fear in their eyes. You can see the discomfort, hear the discomfort in their voice. And we thought that's and then we talked to a hypnotherapist. We talked to a psychologist who gets into the way that the brain works. We're talking about individuals that have a case of post-traumatic stress disorder. folks that will not go back in the woods. And these are people that are carrying guns. They know what bears look like. They know what mountain lions look like. They've seen them. They're not afraid of them. And they're done. They're done hunting. They're done. They've given up their lifelong passion because of how afraid they are of what they've seen. And it wasn't necessarily a negative experience in that they felt threatened or attacked. It was the fact that they made eye contact. That was it.
Wow.
That was it. And it left that kind of impression on them. So, I thought if we can tell these folks' story properly, then we're going to get some people out there that are going to watch this film and walk away from it going, I may not be 100% convinced, but I'm thinking differently now. It's going to start that train of thought where people are going to start questioning things instead of just shutting it down, saying, there's no such thing as Bigfoot. That's a myth. Oh, really? Have you looked at the evidence? Have you talked to somebody that's seen one? Because once you talk to somebody and get those feels, if you will, from somebody, your mind starts to change.
So you think that the interviews that you've done makes this documentary set apart from others?
I do. And I respect the other documentaries that are going out there and they're doing field-based research and they're capturing some great stuff. But again, I feel like, getting some of these stories from these firsthand witnesses, we have a law enforcement officer, Rich Schmo, who saw it on duty. It flipped his world upside down completely. He now questions everything. His own reality is now questioned because of what he saw, because he didn't believe in Bigfoot. No, I don't think there's a single person that we've interviewed that went out into the woods or wherever with a belief of Bigfoot. Obviously, some of these people have had multiple encounters, but their first encounter, they weren't out looking for Bigfoot. They weren't Bigfoot hunting. And they went from non-believers or just didn't really think about it to 100% bona fide believers. And I think that, when somebody who's skeptical sees that and sees that emotion, and I feel like humans instinctively can tell when somebody's telling the truth or not. You get a feeling for it. There's no question in my mind, no question, zero, that any of these people are not telling us the truth.
Well, we see so much stuff on television, and I can't tell you how many documentaries I've watched, and I'm looking for something different. And another thing that popped in my head while we were talking about this is the witnesses that you have that tell these stories. How I want to frame this. Are they going to dispel some of the myths that are out there? Are any of this research going to do that, or how's this playing out? I guess
So that might be a good question for you. Yeah.
Okay, so to unpack your question, are you asking me if any of the witnesses bring anything new to the table as far as data?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Certainly there's some new faces in here, or some faces that you don't see that often on social media or any of these conferences that make their opinion quite clear, including that of Sonia Zohar, who's, has some interesting connections to the Canadian government, has interesting connections to Les Stroud, Survivor Man, and what happened in Canada with Todd Standing and that whole area called Sylvanic, where they had up close Bigfoot action. I believe some of it was caught on video with Dr. Meldrum. She doesn't do a lot of end camera stuff talking about her point of view, certainly a fresh perspective with that. But this documentary is leaning in I don't want to put words in Brett's mouth, and I don't know if this is an intention, but the documentary, is basically, there's a baseline here that says Sasquatch is. Well, now it's leaning a direction. It's like, okay, we're not going to lie to the audience here, but this is a subject matter that leans hardcore to the supernatural, to the quantum, and we're going to talk about it. And you start to get that sense in this documentary, especially towards the end, that it's going to lean in that direction. And, I had no idea that this may be connected to, in the first chapter, we had Marcia K. Moore, who is, I call her a forensic artist. She does repatriation sculptures of the elongated skull people from Peru.
Mm-hmm.
So she takes 3D renderings, sometimes actual elongated skulls, and does some reconstruction either digitally or with polymer clay. I had no idea that this phenomena could be related to those people, but there is some relationship to the Sasquatch phenomena and those red-headed giants. The data that's coming back from the work of Brian Forrester in South America is that these red-headed giants from the Black Sea, I believe, have some connections to the Pacific Northwest tribes that also claim that they have either Sasquatch DNA flowing through their veins, or they have such rich Sasquatch backgrounds traditionally through their oral traditions that it's kind of entrenched with the longheads of old. I had no idea about that, or that some of the megalithic structures could be connected to petroglyphs of Sasquatch beings near megalithic structures and things like that. There's oftentimes petroglyphs of Sasquatch in connection to this spiral petroglyph next to it. And why would that be? Why, what is the spiral connected to? Well, I think I know. Once you get mixed up in a power, all sorts of cross contamination between these open window areas and the Bigfoot phenomena. So to lean in on that and talk about that, and Marcia is just a great voice, an underutilized voice in this community. And I just want to say this too, the Bigfoot community, I've watched them since the mid 2000s, except documentaries about Sasquatch. And the bar's been set pretty low. And then along comes Jill, Brett, and Mike. And they're like, oh, we make films too. Let's do it on Bigfoot. And and it is such a gift to the Bigfoot community to have a documentary out like this on the subject matter. And I just hope, that they're appreciated just as much now as they are tomorrow for that fact. And it's just been such a rare pleasure to watch this film take place like that, and a new story about Bigfoot that has never been done before.
Well, I'm a little prejudiced, and this is just my opinion, but I think because of the new scientific equipment is things that have come out, the research that we do to try to prove that there are ghosts and spirits, I think it's starting to be taken a little more seriously. And now that the government has come out and said, yeah, UFOs do exist, now that's something else that people had been poo-pooing for I don't know how long, and now they're like, oh, wait a second. Although it's not getting as much attention as I thought it would. And I think it's about time we have something that makes cryptids be taken a little more seriously.
See, the government cannot control the pop culture narrative. It's the one thing, as far as their influence, they can try to do it themselves covertly. But that's something, the work of Jeremy Corbell is something that I've watched grow and grow and grow. And he really sunk his teeth into the fact that, hey, there's never been a UFO genre that's kind of changed how we're going to deliver this medicine to people. And it is a type of weird medicine, the secret knowledge that these phenomena exist. And this is another example of that. I believe that this film, and certainly the second one as well, will change up how people probably make documentaries in the future about the subject matter, because running around with camcorders trying to get the shot, with grainy footage, and nobody's mic'd up, and it just, the Blair Witch style documentaries aren't going to cut it anymore. Sure. And so it's just been really cool to watch this being built from the ground floor up, and I think it will.
Well,
probably a lot of people copying.
I've had people on the show that are they're not into cryptids and all that. What they research are the giant sized people, and whether this is true or not, I don't know. I'm just going by what I've been told, that the government knows about that stuff, and they've hidden away the bones. So people used to, you could see them in museums. Now you can't see them. That's what I was told. I don't know. I've been to museums probably 30 years, but I saw on Finding Bigfoot that this area had a bunch of sightings, and the government came in and bought up all the land, and now they've got it fenced off. You can't go in there. I've heard they've taken some of this evidence, and this is from somebody who was in the military, told me they've taken some of the evidence of Bigfoot and have either destroyed it or hidden it away. They don't know exactly. I mean, well, how you feel about that, Toby? Do you think that really happens, or is this just tall tales?
I don't know. We told that story that our buddy Jerry Hine, who is a Bigfoot enthusiast, I believe from like Northern California area, and Jerry and I go back to the mid 2000s, and Jerry has a story where he basically set up that a Bigfoot was killed by a semi truck in Northern California, and so it's all a ruse. The truck driver picks up the phone and calls 911 and says, "I just killed a Bigfoot." Again, a total ruse. And all it is somebody that wants to stand back in the brush to see what kind of people show up about hitting a Sasquatch. And according to Jerry's story, if I remember correctly, some black Escalades showed up, men in black types, and were there to do a cleanup, I guess, or to threaten the eyewitness about what they saw. So these are just stories. Personally, I don't really have any clue, but Brett, maybe you can chime in on that.
Yeah, I mean, we do talk to an individual in the film who is a former Army intelligence analyst, and he sheds some light on some of the government's activities. And some of the things he talks about is an elite unit based in the Pacific Northwest that will go into the woods, go into the forest, and deal with troubling animals, or what did he call? I'm trying to think of what he called them. Problem animals or something like that. So anyway, so they'll go and they'll eradicate something that's been going into camps, and I'm not talking about bears, obviously. So he talks about that quite a bit. There's kind of a legendary story, about the eruption of Mount St. Helens, and some of the first folks that were up there were Army, National Guard, various military sources with helicopters going and removing, Sasquatch bodies before the general public found them. There's all kinds of eyewitnesses, from, the folks that actually looked up and saw Bigfoot bodies in nets flying over their backyard in Western Washington, to helicopter pilots. And we're actively seeking those folks out because, Mount St. Helens exploded, 42 years ago. So it's getting, these people are getting long in the tooth. So we want to talk to them and get more to that story. But there's definitely government involvement. We talk about the financial impact that Bigfoot could have on a small community that could have, could have ramifications for a community that makes its money in the summer season through, recreating in forest areas and lake areas and stuff. And that's a real concern. And I understand that. We've had that problem in the Pacific Northwest with logging and the spotted owl and whatnot. It's decimated communities. There's ghost towns now where there used to be thriving logging communities because of the Endangered Species Act. And I think that Bigfoot could potentially have those same implications. The government, if they ever do come out and admit that Bigfoot is real, isn't going to come out and say, Bigfoot's real, and by the way, he can disappear at will. That's not going to happen. They're going to come out, if they acknowledge it, they're going to acknowledge it as an endangered species until they get a decent population count. And that's never going to happen.
So you answered my next question before I even answered it. Doggone you.
Psychic. It's psychic Bigfoot ability.
I got you. Speaking of their camouflage, one of the things that I've been told was that their hair is some kind of translucent. I don't know what you'd call it, but what's your thoughts on that? Or would you rather Toby answer that one?
I
Oh
think Tobe
yeah.
might be able to get into it a little further. He's actually found some potential Bigfoot hair.
The publisher of my book, The L Moon Lab, is Doug Hychek, who's the creator of Monster Quest. And Doug is an out-of-the-box thinker. And his last study, I think, was a combined effort with Todd Neese, that they're looking into the Sasquatch having a fiber optic type quality to it, where light can pass through and change literally the shape of what you're seeing. So it appears as though it's, transparent or translucent. And that's an interesting theory. I don't think it covers all the bases, because people see them cloaked from halfway up sometimes. People see them cloaked entirely. That means the face is not entirely covered. The teeth are not covered with hair. The fingernails are not. The bottoms of the feet are not. People have reported seeing Sasquatch walk through the forest duff and seeing the forest duff actually push down as they're walking by them. I just don't think that covers enough scientific. I think we need to prepare ourselves. And probably the best way to do that is through what's happening right now with disclosure with UFOs, is that there's something altogether way more profound about this phenomena than fiber optic hair options. And so I'm not saying that's wrong, but there's some footage coming up in part 2 through a mutual friend of ours, Barb Shoop, who shows something so profound on film. And it's only, what is it, Brett, like less than a 3-second shot?
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah, and it's a cloaked image. It's called the cloaker footage, right? And it's broad daylight, less than 50 yards away, I would say. Multiple witnesses, all shot with just a regular iPhone or smartphone. But yet the profound nature of what she caught on there, I don't think has been duplicated, and it certainly hasn't been debunked. So if we can figure out what that is, maybe we can figure out how it does it, or maybe reverse those questions there. If we can figure out how it does it, maybe we can figure out what it is. But I don't know. Very interesting footage, interesting questions about it.
It's the Predator.
It looks,
Yeah.
it looks just like the Predator. It looks just like the
Wow.
Predator, and that's what we're calling it in the Bigfoot community. We're calling it the Predator effect. And I got that footage from Barb. We were going to include it in the first film before we realized that we needed to make it 2 chapters. And I spent a good 3 hours analyzing it and looking at it frame by frame and looking at every pixel. And I'm not a let me put it this way. I'm a novice visual effects artist. I've done some complicated work in the past. I've been an editor for 25 years. And I knew enough to be dangerous. And I could find no sign that her footage had been tampered with. She gave it to me directly. I looked at the actual original footage, and after that 3 hours, when I'd run out of explanations for what that footage was, I got goosebumps from head to toe, because I knew it was real. And I didn't approach it as if it was real. I approached it as if it were fake, and I was looking for the clue. The clue's not there. It's just not there. It would have been extremely expensive and difficult for her to have faked that in 2014 when it was shot. And that's a fact, and I've got other friends that have done some complicated visual effects work for major Hollywood movies that would agree with that. So it's extremely compelling. And, I've enhanced it, I've stabilized it. And what we're going to see in the sequel is going to show it off better than I think anybody else has ever seen.
Do you think that's the best evidence out there, or have y'all seen something else that's more convincing?
It's the best evidence I've ever seen by far. I am working on trying to get another video clip that I've seen recently that is just about as compelling, that was shot here in Oregon. So fingers crossed I get that. But this is very credible, because it's not, there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? It's in your face. Let me put it that way. It's in your face that this is a being. It's watching. It's completely invisible until it ducks down, turns, and runs away. And you can see the movement of it running away. It's It's so unbelievably obvious.
Mm-hmm. And the gal that took it, I mean, she has extraordinary claims, and she has a group of devotees that go out 4 times a year to these hotspot areas, and she packs the house up with people that want to go and hang out with her in the woods, and they pretty much always have some crazy experience. I've been a part of it at least 2 or 3 times. My girlfriend has, and we all still hang out. And so why is that? Why does there seem to be these areas, these window areas where the phenomena is? Or is it the individual that's attracting? And this is all stuff that I'm thinking, the last 24 months is it these individuals that are
Yeah.
attracting this phenomena here? Do they have this latent psychic ability and they don't know it? That's really interesting to think about, that maybe it has to do more with the people that show up.
Well, a lot of animals, like dogs, for instance, they have the sense of people, and they know if this person's friendly or they're going to be a threat. I think it should be possible. I mean, why not? I mean, we have gut instincts ourselves, and they may not be as attuned. Maybe it's further advanced than we are, and it has that ability to say, "Oh, this person's okay. I can trust being in front of this person."
Mm-hmm.
Endless
Yeah.
possibilities. But Brett, we're going to have something else to look forward to after the second part. Or are you working on something else?
We are working on something else. And I think it's probably too early to talk about that right now, but it is in the Bigfoot world. And I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see it. I know they will, because Bigfoot folks love seeing Bigfoot stuff. And I don't blame them. I'm the same. Before we made this movie, Jill and I devoured anything we could get our hands on. So we're going to continue that. But that's probably still year and a half, couple years out. The sequel, the Paranormal Bigfoot, Flash of Beauty, the Paranormal Bigfoot, will be out probably next spring. We're trying to get it done and out as soon as we possibly can, but we still have some more filming to do.
Well, I'm very green when it comes to Bigfoot, so any little bit I can learn, I'd love to. I'm actually going to start going out with a buddy of mine that does this, and I'd love to get into UFOs. You thinking of getting into any of that stuff too? The UFOs and ghosts and stuff?
I think we are. I think we're into it. You know what I mean? I think it comes with the territory. I think that what we're so excited about with Paranormal Bigfoot is that we're going to present some scientific theory that might explain all of it. It might explain how UFOs move. It might explain how ghosts can appear and disappear. There have actually been sightings of ghosts at the same time as Bigfoot, and we have one of those interviews on tape. So they're all in cahoots. It's all some sort of paranormal club that they're all members of, and we're gonna get into it.
I'm looking forward to it then. So, Brett, do you have a website, social media that people can go to?
Yeah. So the best thing to do is to follow us on Facebook. If you Google, if you type in A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, you'll find our Facebook page. Follow us there for news and updates. We have a website, bigfootdoc.com. And I think those are probably the two best places to find us. And we try and update as much as possible. We also have an Instagram account too, but we don't update that as much as we should.
I understand that. And how about you, Tobe?
Well, part of the doc, along with Brett and Jill and Mike, we have some conferences that we're going to be attending here in the future, and that'll probably lead to new contacts and such. There's a book out that I wrote called The Owl Moon Lab. If anybody wants to get a hold of it, and I guess a teaser of part 2, you can pick that up. It's available through Hangar One Publishing, or just go into Amazon and type in The Owl Paranormal Experiment. It's an interactive book that you can scan your phone over, and it will have these embedded QR codes that take you to the data that's being explained in the book.
Oh, wow. Can you guys do me a favor and send me all the links that you'd like to share that I can put in the description? And that makes it
Yeah.
easier for folks. They can just click on it and go straight to it.
Mm.
And I want to thank you guys for your time. First of all, I'm so glad Todd got me in touch with you, Brett. And I'm looking forward to watching everything. And Toby, I appreciate you coming here and spending your time. I'm a little more educated, I feel.
Me too.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate
Thank
you having us on your show.
Oh, of course. And if anything comes up in the future that you want to talk about, you want to share, please get in touch with me because I'd love to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Will do.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. I want to thank you all out there. If you are new to the channel, I appreciate you stopping by and hope you subscribe and you'll come back. For those of you who are regular to the channel, thank you so much for your support. It's because of you that we get to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
Po boy.